to the FF Forge. My name is Steve, and today I'm gonna just give you the schedule for this week. First of all, on this episode, I'm going to first run over my draft and a few takeaways that I got from my draft, which took place on Saturday. If you don't care about that information, you can just skip right ahead via the timestamps below, so just check that out. And what you would be skipping ahead to is, well, I'm going to be going through several of these picker wheels here to determine a couple of mock drafts that I'm going to do. Going to randomize whether it's going to be a full PPR or half PPR draft, the amount of positions in that draft, 2 flex, 3 wide receivers, super flex, etc., which position I will be drafting from, and then for the first 5 picks of the draft, I will be randomizing what position I draft. And now I did one of these practices on Friday, which ended up actually being helpful for my draft that I did on Saturday because it was a little bit different than kind of my strategy going into the draft this season. It was a unique ending result for my draft. So why don't we pull up my team right now, which is Cup of Charbonnet. And on the screen, you can now see each of my draft picks. I picked from the 10 spot. Over to the right of the names, if it's a plus number, that means I got that player 3 spots after ADP. So I was kind of in a surplus, you could say, for draft value in a sense at each of those picks. If it's a negative, that means I quote unquote reached a few. It's really, I think, only pick 6 and 7 and then 14 there, which I took a guy ahead of ADP. For your information, my draft is not experts. It's very much the home league type of group. There's people anywhere from ages in their 30s all the way up to maybe into his 80s or so. So it's a wide variety of people. You know, we have the guy who bought a magazine and did some basic research over the last couple of weeks and did a few mock drafts over the last couple of days. Got a few people who are in multiple leagues. You have the home team drafters, the guys who are going to go up and get, for instance, pretty much everybody in my league is, they're all from Wisconsin, and a lot of them live right in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Romeo Doubs, I think, got taken very shortly. I think he was maybe the pick right after Tyler Lockett, so like 6th round, potentially. Maybe it's the 8th round, somewhere right in there. Romeo Doubs went fairly early, but he wanted his Packers players. So it is one of those types of leagues, and right off the bat, I got presented at the first pick, the 10th pick of the draft, with the one decision that I did not want to see because I didn't know which route to go no matter what, and there were 2 players that I would love to have on my team between Cooper Kupp and Saquon Barkley. Now, going into this draft season, my main thing is that the tie goes to the receiver in the early rounds because I've always felt like I could get some running backs later on in the draft. Most likely, cherry pick them, reach for some of them if I have to. Which, speaking of, Devon Achane, that should be a negative 19 there. That I popped early on that pick. My bad on that. Back to that first pick, tie goes to the receiver, so I went with Cooper Kupp over Saquon Barkley, and then A.J. Brown came to me around the turn. A good start. I was happy to start wide receiver, but then the value just kept falling to me. Mark Andrews is a guy who I haven't seen make it this far in the 3rd round for a long time, couple of months probably. And then Ramondre Stevenson, another guy I haven't seen since about that same time, 2 months ago or so. It's the last time that I saw Ramondre Stevenson fall this far in the draft. Then, just like Mark Andrews, Justin Fields, if he made it to me at that 10 pick in the 5th round, there was, let's say in each of those situations, like an 85% chance that I would be taking that guy. And so when Justin Fields did fall to me, I had to take it, and it's about that time that I'm starting to say, okay, well, obviously, I'm pushing the running backs off, and I'm going to go ahead, I'll get my flex here, and I'm just going to have to take a bunch of running backs, at least 6, and have them fight it out, duke it out for my RB2 spot. And then I already noticed the running backs were going hot and heavy early on in this draft, and it was really between that 6th to that 7th round pick that a lot of wide receiver value dropped to me. And it's not as apparent with the two players that I took because I have these wide receivers higher than some guys who have higher ADPs. But you would be shocked at some of the, like maybe 2 or 3 names that were still around, including Brandon Ayuk there in the 8th round, because people were just taking a lot of running backs. And so to me, in a draft, if there's a clear zig going on, I'm very apt to zag because I know that I'm familiar enough with the draft that I'll find guys that I'm happy enough to get on my team. And so I went Jahan Dotson and then Brandon Ayuk. Jahan Dotson, a recent riser for me that I was happy to take. Brandon Ayuk was higher on my draft board, but lower on my rankings. So, for instance, the 3-pick, 4th round, 3rd round pick, you can almost flip those two in my mind. Like, I almost wanted Ramondre Stevenson more than Mark Andrews, but I knew there was a much higher chance of Ramondre Stevenson making it around because I always keep track, and let me turn this off, show this, over on, yes, that side of my draft board. Oh gosh. Over here, you can see I have Team 11, Team 12, hopefully you can see it, Team 12, and then each position. And I keep track of if you're drafting towards any extreme of the draft, 2 or 3 people I think is about the max that it's easy enough to do this with. Keep track of how many players at each position they have drafted. I knew like Ramondre Stevenson was probably going to make it around to me in the 4th round because one of the guys had taken 2 running backs at the 1st and 2nd round picks, and then one of the other guys had taken 1 running back, 1 wide receiver. There was some good quarterback. I felt like I could risk it, and it worked there. And then Justin Fields, Tyler Lockett. I took Justin Fields first, knowing I could get Tyler Lockett with that 6th pick anyways. Like, I wanted them both there with that 5th pick. So, yeah. Just something to keep in mind if you're drafting around those turns. Keep stock of how many players at each position guys took. So that way, especially with those onesie positions, tight ends, DSTs, kickers later on in the draft, you don't reach for one when you don't have. So this 7th, 8th round, this is where I just decided, okay, I was starting to decide it after the 6th round, but I'm really just going to go hard and take a running back for the rest of the draft. And I know that there's going to be some value to be had. Some running backs are going to be falling to me because my teammates, once again, were just drafting running backs hot and heavy, and you can only have so many running backs on your roster, or you can only be so thin at other positions before you start to draft those positions. And it felt like almost everybody in my league was going to be heavy on the running back. And you can definitely see, especially once we'll get to the last pick of the draft, how much value I got with one of my running backs. Hopefully, my quarterback, Justin Fields, can stay healthy for me. Another thing I mentioned that I had kind of a little bit of practice. So I just wanted to show you this draft that I did when I did a wheel draft, which happened to go tight end in the 1st round, quarterback in the 2nd round. I'll cut this out if we end up getting a draft like this. But I did mention tight end. Both those positions in my recent bust video are not really guys that I'm going to go for. However, I liked the draft that I ended up getting, so you can pause this if you would like to look at that team that's on the screen there a little bit closer, but I did end up liking that team quite a bit. Quick reminder, if you would like, you can get my printable draft sheet up on the website, www.theFFForge.com. There's a link down in the description to the website where you could click on this little button on the front page, or you could click on rankings up here, and you can click here. My draft sheet is a combination of ADP and my rankings, so it is not just in the order of my rankings. I do that just for several reasons. I like it like that. It helps to ensure that you can draft better, I think, throughout a draft with players that maybe I'm way off kilter compared to ADP on. And also, if you would like my rankings, I especially suggest if you go and you meet in person and the commissioner prints off a draft board, that you use that. If most of the league mates are using that draft board, use that draft board. But then you could always have my rankings along with you, which is what I did in my draft, in case you're ever looking and you're debating between 2 players, you want to see who I have ranked higher. There you go. Check it out quickly. So let's find out what the first mock draft that we're going to be doing today looks like. This is spinning forever. You have to love that Sims music. We are going to do a full PPR. Superflex, 3 wide receiver. 7 spot. All right, so I don't know, you probably can't hear the rain outside, but that reminds me, if there's a hurricane heading to my coast in Florida this coming week, so if I disappear, a power outage or something got in the way of getting a video finished up in time for my schedule this week. All right, I had to do a quick reset because I did not have the flex spot, including the quarterback spot. So we have 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, super flex, kicker, DST, picking from the 7th spot. And Lamar Jackson was still on the board last time. That sucks. I think we want Justin Fields. We're going to go Justin Fields. I just like the upside more than Justin Herbert for Justin Fields, especially after Justin Fields' performance last season. Not that I expect him to be as bad as he was last year, but it's super flex. I want the upside anyways. I want to win a championship. I don't want to just be mediocre. Okay, we want 3 quarterbacks because we always want to be able to put a quarterback in our flex spot. So let's see what Sleeper's thinking here, if we can get away with going with a running back here. Although, this is 3 wide receiver. So I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb over the running back position right now. Yeah, I think we want to get our 2nd quarterback off of the board here. We are passing up on Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is very valuable. But I feel better in a 2 quarterback league, making sure that's one of my strengths. I really don't want to just go crazy strategy on a super flex league. So we're seeing some running back, quite a few running backs go here, maybe 2 more than the wide receivers since my last pick. This is an area of the draft that I'm not overly excited to get one of these wide receivers. I think they're all a little bit bland or overvalued. So I will go ahead and I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs. I do have Joe Mixon 1 spot ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs, but just since the average person likes Jahmyr better than Joe Mixon, we'll go with that. So we're going to start off quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback, running back in the first 4 rounds here. So I'm just looking ahead at the quarterback ADPs. And for my 3rd quarterback, I'm probably like Matt Stafford would be great. Jordan Love would be okay. Kenny Pickett would be good. Brock Purdy. So yeah, I'm going to wait to see if either Matt Stafford falls a little bit or I'll grab Brock Purdy around the 8th round there. Assuming that ADPs end up being pretty truthful in this draft. And I don't really want to reach up for George Kittle here. We could use a 2nd wide receiver. So what's that looking like? Kyle Pitts wouldn't be bad. Joe Mixon, I have a bot. You know what? Let's grab Joe Mixon here and see what we lose out on. Jerry Jeudy with that hamstring, a little concerned about. Drake London, although I like him, I think that we're drafting him closer to his ceiling than his floor. Terry McLaurin, that's another guy that worries me with his recent injury. And we can get Christian Watson with great upside here. So I'm thinking that's going to be the route we'll go. We don't need to pop off at quarterback yet. So we're getting into a funky spot now where I either have to accept a lower grade tight end than I want to. You know what? Dalton Schultz would be okay. I'd rather get a wide receiver than a Pat Freiermuth by a little ways. Still some running back value, not bad, but we have our 2 running backs, so we'll get the rest of our running backs. We're more concerned about filling these out. I'll go Christian Kirk. I do believe I still have, I have Lockett ranked a little bit ahead of Kirk, but oh well. Still some decent wide receivers available right here. These are the wide receivers that I kind of like to get in a draft, 1 or 2 of, and I feel like I got one between Lockett, Kirk there in that group as well. Pat Freiermuth still available. Matt Stafford not taken yet, so I feel like Brock Purdy should probably make it to my next pick. So actually, we are going to then, well, we're going to take our first depth piece with Marquise Brown, actually. And Matt Stafford is still on the board, so we'll start that little next run that'll come soon. There we go. Can you pick it off of the board? We did not get our tight end. I should have gone tight end there. I made a draft mistake by not looking at your board. I always remember to look at the board, and I like Chig more than Cole Kmet, so we will need to get 2 tight ends in this draft. It's going to make us thinner, but that's okay. So we have 4 wide receivers. We have our 3 quarterbacks. So a tight end and a running back. Wow. I think we're going to have to take. The thing is, I don't want just 3 running backs on my roster, which going 2 wide receiver, that's all that would leave room for. So running backs are the most injured position. I don't want to go so thin at them that I'm worried about that. I think we can push. Well, no, this is about the spot in the draft right now that we would need to take Kenneth Gainwell. So I will do that. This is about where he's going in the 140s. I'm pretty confident I can get another wide receiver I like at the end of the draft. Running back will probably push off one more round here, which leaves us to tight end. So I have Luke Musgrave ahead of Sam Laporta, but let's just go with the ADP so you're seeing a team that maybe you're more likely to draft. Understand why Sam Laporta goes ahead of Luke Musgrave all day. And I think we'll take Jaylen Warren here with our next pick. He's a guy who I think is going to have a bit of a floor this season. I think we're going to see Pittsburgh share that rock a little bit more than we are used to. He's really looked impressive this offseason. He looked impressive last year as a rookie. And I think that's where we're just going to go ahead and get a DST off the board because we were comfortable being able to find a flyer wide receiver. And we, spent up decently at wide receiver here. Feel really comfortable with these 3 guys. Make sure there's not a wide receiver I don't want to go without, and there is not. So we will also take our kicker. And if you're drafting this weekend, so close to the draft, one thing that you could do if you like a guy like DJ Chark is go ahead and you can take DJ Chark, and then there's a decent chance he will be out week 1. You can grab a high-end backup running back or something and hope for an injury, like a Marvin Mims. You could grab him and see if maybe he pops off week 1 and you really like that. Maybe then you keep him over DJ Chark or something like that. Just something to keep in mind at the end of the drafts with a guy like DJ Chark who might be out week 1. If you're on the borderline with him, like take him and then you can get a second guy. If you have IR spots, that is. So here's the roster. We went 2 quarterbacks nice and early. We feel real comfortable with that, giving us maybe not a huge advantage, but at least keeping us on par to better than most of the league. And then I like Matt Stafford late. I think he should be able to outproduce his ADP and be a solid weekly guy. Went ahead, got a couple of running backs and a couple of late running backs as backups, and we focused on our wide receivers early and got a flyer there late. And the tight end is going to be our sore spot. But if there's anywhere to be as, tight end, it's not the worst place to have that as a sore spot. So there that draft is. Here we can go highlight that, look at that. And let's go on to finding out what our second draft is going to look like. And I am so dumb, I forgot to do this. So we'll just do this portion, the fun part for the second draft. And we know we'll be taking a running back in the first round. I'm so sorry about that, but oh well, at least you got like one of each now. So we're going to do half PPR. I didn't even think about that as far as full PPR in that other draft. That was all the more reason to be focusing on the wide receiver selection. I'm doing a terrible job at paying attention to these things. And now with half PPR, I'm not going to be focusing on that at all. Let's see real quick. Going back here. No, CeeDee Lamb's definitely a guy I'm not going to be taking lower because of full PPR settings. Christian Watson over Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman. Yeah, I would still go Christian Watson. I still like the upside, even though Chris Godwin might have a higher floor, especially for full PPR. I could understand taking Chris Godwin over Christian Watson. I'll say that much. Christian Kirk compared to Jackson Smith-Jigba. Mike Williams for sure would be good with that. Addison, Deontay Johnson. I might have splurged for Deontay Johnson here over Christian Kirk with full PPR in mind. That would probably be... And then I think Marquise Brown's a great full PPR pick. And DJ Shark's not a great full PPR. This is a flyer spot. Trying to think of any late wide receivers. Curtis Samuel might be worth a shot if Terry McLaurin is held down this year, if he's held back by that turf toe. Curtis Samuel could end up seeing more targets than a lot of people are expecting. I already expect him to see more targets than people are seem to be projecting him for. So he wouldn't be a terrible flyer at the end of a draft. And he's a guy that you'll feel very easily that you can drop if he doesn't give you anything week 1 or 2. And we'll be drafting from the 4 spot. All right, so we know with our first pick, we will be going running back. Christian McCaffrey goes off the board, so look at that. Austin Ekeler, nothing too unique there, although I would rather go Tyreek Hill if he was still available with the 4th pick, or Cooper Kupp ahead of Austin Ekeler. Do have a couple of concerns for Austin Ekeler. So let's see here on the board. Nothing too crazy going on. And for our second pick of the draft, we're going to start off with 2 running backs. So we look at the running backs. Tony Pollard definitely over Najee Harris, and I do have Tony Pollard over Ramondre Stevenson yet, and that's the only question mark. So Tony Pollard, it will be with the second pick of this draft. See a couple more quarterbacks going here. The only reason we'll take a running back off of this board or wide receiver is if we get 4 in a row here in those first 5 picks. Quarterback with our 3rd round pick, it's Lamar Jackson. A little bit high here with some of those other options on the board, but we'll make it work. Let's find out what our next pick will be while we wait. We're going to be getting a 3rd running back. Dameon Pierce, Miles Sanders, Alexander Mattison, James Conner. I think I have Mattison ranked above all of these guys. Let me double check on that one. I do. Now, I will say I'm probably going to be moving Dameon Pierce up here a little bit late. He did get a lot of usage in the preseason with out too much splitting when the ones were on the field in their last game. So I might have been wrong on how I thought that backfield would work out, and I do need to maybe reflect that just a little bit with how highly I would draft him. And let's find out from our 5th spot what position we will be drafting. Will it be another running back? It will not. It will be a wide receiver, so that works out all right. We have Terry McLaurin with that turf toe. That concerns me. Believe I have Drake London over DJ Moore. Probably have Christian Watson over Drake London yet. I do by quite a ways. I'm pretty high on Christian Watson, and since it's not full PPR, we'll go with him. Since in the last draft, we would have not gone with him. We changed that in retrospect. So there we go. We have our first 5 picks off the board determined by the wheel. And now, strategy-wise, we know we don't need running backs for a little while. We'll probably pop off on as many wide receivers as possible and maybe grab a tight end in the middle at some point. Let's make sure nobody's falling to us. Well, Dallas Goedert's a thought. But if we go with Dallas Goedert, what are we passing up on? A good group. This is really an area of the draft I like the wide receivers in. And we know I love Tyler Lockett, so we'll go ahead and get Tyler Lockett off of the board. Yeah, I think it's worth it. And we want to make sure, in case our projections, in case our draft stock, in case we're wrong on these 2 options, we want to back that up. Could go Marquise Brown again. Yeah, it's kind of boring, but I still have Marquise Brown ahead of these guys. I expect him to get a lot of targets. Now, what I will say, let's pretend Clayton Tune gets named the starter prior to draft time this weekend. Clayton Tune's named the starter. I'm a little less bullish on Marquise Brown. Like, the ceiling kind of goes up a little bit, but not early season. And I think the floor goes down, and that's part of the strength for Marquise Brown. So in the event that would happen, I think I would go Deontay Johnson here. Actually, I would go Brandon Cooks, but I know you wouldn't. So I'll go Deontay. We have Lamar. We're going to want to take a second quarterback at some point just because Lamar Jackson injuries, that's always a concern. Running backs, we're going to have wide receiver competition at our flex spot. Let's go get another wide receiver off the board. Not a big fan of Kadarius Toney. I understand the upside. Treylon Burks, the injury, no longer too excited about that. I think I would take Courtland Sutton here but we can get Cortland Sutton around the turn, which means maybe we're going to go Pat Freiermuth here. We're going to go Cortland Sutton here. Doesn't it feel better taking Cortland Sutton over some of these names compared to Gabe Davis, Treylon Burks, Quentin Johnson, Kadarius Toney? I think Cortland will have a good year. There is the chance that he'll be washed. I didn't really see it last season, and I think he had a pretty good season, and I think their offense will be better this season, so I'm not too concerned about it. Elijah Mitchell would be a solid running back in case of injury. One of the best names. This might be a case where I'd like Elijah. We have 2 flex spots to fill. We'll go Elijah Mitchell because I do want to get a quarterback off of the board, and we can be pretty confident that one of them is going to be making it around the turn. And it's Daniel Jones that I want out of these, and he does have a late ADP. He might still be on the board around the next turn, but wide receivers are about to not be going. We're going to see a little bit of rush on other positions, I think, for a little bit. So let's take advantage of that, and we'll grab Daniel Jones. And as you can see, defenses start going here. A couple of tight ends, a couple of kickers, more tight ends. Yeah, 0 wide receivers went off of the board there. So we still need a defense and a kicker, of course, and then we're going to need 3 positions. If I get Pat Freiermuth, I don't want to have to think about playing anybody else but him every single week, and I'll just ride whatever he gives me. And I'm confident that it'll be good enough. So I'm not interested in taking a second tight end. Hopefully he doesn't get injured, and when he has a bye week, I'll find a replacement for him. So right now we're going to go, running backs, once they dry up, they dry up. So we're going to check out the running back board quick. Jaylen Warren's at the top here. Devin Singletary's a good pick. Roschon Johnson. Let's pretend Kenneth Gainwell got drafted. Let's just do that. Think we can go ahead and trust that one of these top 3 to New England will make it to us at the next pick, and that means we would be waiting all the way. That's going to bring us back to the running back. So actually, I'm going to take Jaylen Warren off of the board here. I do believe I have him higher on my draft board, maybe not my rankings, than Roschon Johnson. The thing I like about Roschon Johnson is Jaylen Warren's not going to be the RB1 no matter what this season unless there is an injury to Najee Harris, whereas Roschon, come 6 week, he could be named the starter going forward. So that's the upside I like about Roschon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. There are 3 teams that need DSTs in front of me, and frankly, there are enough DSTs. I don't have enough of a difference with considering the starting schedule for New England that I'm too worried about. So let's go ahead, and I would take Darnell Mooney actually off of the board here. He's been there and done it before, and I think that DJ Moore could really open things up for him to have some explosive games in weeks. He's kind of my Christian Watson replacement in case I need a little bit of pop in my lineup. If it was full PPR, I definitely would have gone Romeo Doubs there. So I miscounted the defenses. There were 4 that still needed, but I was still comfortable with either of these 2, really. But Denver was the big one that I was okay with. Or Cleveland I have higher than Denver. I have Cleveland higher. I'm going to take Cleveland. I know they were drafted in my league. And we'll go ahead and get Brandon McManus. I like him as a kicker here. And we'll wrap this up with a wide receiver. I think Van Jefferson is probably going to be the guy here. He is. Van Jefferson to wrap that up. And so there's that league. Went a heavy running back. Got a couple of extra running backs. Jaylen Warren, in case of replacement, will be fine. And Elijah Mitchell should probably be in a similar position on a weekly basis, but also in the event of an injury, should be excellent. And then we got our tight end. Yeah, that's how I drafted in that situation. Thank you very much. We just had a little bit of fun in this video, tested out a little bit of scenarios. If the board leads you in a certain direction, how do you react to it? And this was how I reacted in this situation. Peace out.